Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you all today, 2025 Women's Leadership Summit. So on behalf of Genentech, I want to thank the Bay Area Council and all of today's partners for convening this remarkable event. At Genentech, we're deeply committed to supporting women leaders who are driving innovation across every sector. That's why we're proud to support this summit, and especially proud to introduce today's keynote speaker, a woman who probably needs no introduction and who exemplifies leadership in action. Patti Poppe is the CEO of PG&E. She made history as the first woman to serve consecutively as CEO of 2 Fortune 500 companies when she stepped into her current role at PG&E in 2021. Since then, she has led the company through a bold transformation, one grounded in safety, accountability, and long-term climate resilience. Under Patti's leadership, PG&E has invested in a more sustainable energy future and launched industry-leading innovations in grid reliability and clean energy deployment. But what makes Patti's leadership stand out and connects deeply with the theme of today's summit is her courage to drive change even when it's hard. She is a relentless advocate for her teams, for PG&E's customers, and for future generations who will inherit the energy systems we build today. Please join me in welcoming a truly exceptional leader and change maker, Patti Poppe, CEO of PG&E. Thank you.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. Gosh, I love it when my calendar says I'm going to San Jose. I'm like, oh, I know the way to San Jose, in fact. Yeah, thank you. I wanted to spend a few minutes today busting a few myths and sharing with you some real reasons to be optimistic. I think we certainly are faced with a lot of challenges and perhaps lots of competing ideas. And I want to share with you on behalf of myself and all my coworkers at PG&E why we're optimistic and why we're looking forward to being able to serve you better, and why we believe that we can do a lot together to make the world a better place and for California to prosper. The planet is calling. We don't have to look far. We only have to look to LA just this year and the devastations that have occurred there. And I'm not sure people fully appreciate how serious the situation is there and how our conditions continue to call us to act, that we can't hope that things get better, that leaders need to make it better. And I'm proud of the progress that we've made at PG&E. I'll just say, every day, I wear this pin. I put a different one on each day, but it's always a ladybug. And I put the ladybug on every day to remind me of a little girl who died in a fire, the Zog fire in 2020. They were having breakfast for dinner, she and her mom and dad Dad went out to get bacon. You ever have breakfast for dinner? It's such a cool thing. Dad went out to get bacon, and by the time he got back, he couldn't get to him, and his wife and his daughter died in their car trying to get out. And when people ask me, what are we up to at PG&E? We're up to making sure that never happens again. Little Fela loved ladybugs, and so I put one on every day, and I say to her, we're working on it, I promise, we're getting better. And I want you to know, and I'm going to share with you some of the facts about how, in fact, we are getting better. But one of the myths I want to bust today is in this notion that the planet is calling and what's happening in California, that maybe PG&E is not the right team to help, or maybe we're somehow not equipped to assist. But let me give you some reasons to believe. There's a lot to know about what we've done, particularly on wildfire, but it all starts and ends with my people. They get up every day to serve you, and we've made tremendous progress, particularly in wildfire. We've reduced our wildfire risk by over 90%, 90%, by investing in infrastructure. Thank you. By investing in infrastructure and technology, and we have an incredible set of tools that we use that are layers of protection, and then when an ignition does occur, we have the best in the world between CAL FIRE and my own. I have over 100 former firefighters that now work for PG&E to make sure that we are taking the right precautions and putting in place the right mitigations. So that's one thing, I'm very proud of the progress, and I can assure you we're not done yet. Just this year, where we're deploying sensors and sensor technologies from some of the most innovative companies based here in the Bay Area who are helping us equip our grid with sensors that will tell us before a component faults that we have an issue on the system, that get us in front of the problem. So instead of being in response, we're in prevention. Dramatic changes have occurred there. I'd also like to just say that when I took the job at PG&E 5 years ago, it feels like it's been 5 minutes, some days longer than others, but I was told by many that we needed a culture change at PG&E. We needed to create and foster a culture of safety and service. And so when I came to PG&E, I did find something alarming. We were having a fatality on the job. People, our men and women serving you, dying, doing that act of service every 90 to 100 days. That's shocking. That's not normal. There was such an environment of reaction that our people were not taking steps to be safe, and I'm happy to report that just this year we celebrated 945 days since our last fatality. And I say that because our coworkers caused that. In celebration of them, they're the only ones who can cause that to happen. They have to show up on the job and choose to see the hazards and choose to speak. And when they can feel safe to speak about safety and about their own value and their own worth and their coworkers' safety, then that's a culture change that then infuses everything we do. That they can feel safe to speak in any environment to cause the change that's necessary to better serve you, our customers. So I guess I'd just like to say change is on the move at PG&E, and we're not done yet, I can assure you. We've made a lot of progress, but we've got a lot more progress to do to fully earn back your trust. So here's a couple other myths we're going to bust today. One is we can't build stuff in California. I don't know if you've ever heard that. But some people believe that's to be true. And if we're going to grow and prosper in California, we're going to need to build some stuff. And so let me bust that myth. We did this. Everybody know what that is? That's the Golden Gate Bridge. Do you know that it took 15 years to permit the Golden Gate Bridge? Those ferry guys did not like the idea of a bridge. So let's just say not everybody loved the idea of the bridge, but 5 years after it got permitted, it did get built. And that we can't imagine the Bay Area without, obviously, the Golden Gate Bridge. Now, here's something you may not know. This is called the Helm's Pumped Storage Facility. This is a huge hydro facility that PG&E owns and operates. This was built in Kings Canyon. It's actually 2 big reservoirs of water. And when we have extra power, which now is twice in every 24-hour period, we use that extra power to pump water from the lower reservoir up to the upper reservoir. These are big reservoirs. And then when we need power, we can open the gates, the water flows downhill via gravity, and those same motors rotating backwards generate electricity. The cleanest, most resilient energy system in the world is a pumped storage facility, and we have a huge one. And we had to build that in California in the 70s. We did that. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary. In fact, it's so remote. I have people who actually live on the site with their kids and their families. We have a little school and a chef up there who, these people serve you like that. It's amazing. But we did that. So let's do this. Let's build modern infrastructure. This is, of course, I'm just going to make a quick pitch for undergrounding power lines in our highest risk areas. We've met a real milestone just this year. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, we buried our 1,000th mile of power lines. And I just want you to know, we've not gone crazy. We're only undergrounding the lines in our highest risk areas. We're talking about 8% of the miles of power lines that are in the highest risk, highest dense forested areas that are at risk of creating a catastrophic wildfire. We need infrastructure built for purpose. When we buried all the gas lines across the state, it was because they were safer underground. And in certain areas of our electric distribution system, power lines underground are definitely the safest. So there's a myth that says we can't substitute for fossil fuels. You're going to hear that from some people. I'm going to tell you that's not true. And we here in California are doing it. We're living proof. You should be proud of the energy system that serves you, but also sets a role model for the nation and the world. I'm happy to report that last year the energy that PG&E delivered was 98% greenhouse gas free. That was powered by our hydros, our renewables, and our Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant. I'm so grateful for the state for extending that plant an additional 5 years. We've applied with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for a 20-year extension, and we're very close to finalizing that approval process. And then the state will have a decision to make by 2030 about whether we extend that plant further. But today it serves about 8% of all of our energy for the state, and it's a really amazing asset for the state. And if we look back in time, what we've done here in California with our clean energy system, we went from a very traditional fossil fuel-driven energy system, just like it was across the world. We did that, but now we do this. This is our battery storage facility at Moss Landing. We took that steam plant, used the existing transmission lines, and now power it with batteries. And those batteries then serve as a great dispatchable resource tied to renewable energy, so we can increase renewable energy and dispatch it through these batteries every single day. It's an amazing technology, and it's just part of the energy system. So let's do this. Let's continue to lead the world in building and delivering clean energy. You know, some people say that it makes the system unreliable. I will tell you that we have one of the most resilient grids in the world. You might not remember, because sometimes it's hard to remember the absence of a problem, but last year we had the hottest July on record. 8 consecutive heat warning days in the Bay Area. That had never happened before. And guess what didn't happen during those 8 days? None of you received an emergency text message to stop using energy. That happened last year. Yeah, thank you. That's good news. That's because California has been doing this. We've been building clean energy, and in fact, we have added 20 gigawatts of renewable and battery storage capacity in the last 4 years. If you don't know what a gigawatt is, you're just gonna have to take my word for it. It's a big number. It's a big number. So then people ask me, well, the grid can't handle decarbonizing. Can it, Patty? Can we handle all these electric cars? So many people say that to me. Patty, the grid can't handle the electric cars. And now they've recently started saying, and can we handle these data centers and AI? I have good news for you, everybody. Don't believe everything you hear. The grid can definitely handle it. And I'm going to explain to you why that's true. Way back in the day, when we first built this grid, in the earliest days, the grid and electricity was originally invented and delivered to light the streets, to go from whale oil to clean electricity, street lights, and then for the wealthy few, indoor incandescent lighting. Well, all of a sudden we realized we had these power plants that were producing power for nighttime, but they actually were producing power in the daytime, and there was nothing to do with all that extra power. So we came up with things like electric streetcars. That's why electric streetcars exist. And we came up with all sorts of home appliances, and we were convincing people to use electricity. We actually had to convince people to use electricity. I don't have to do that today. But I just do want you to notice this little thing in the corner. PG&E does so much, costs so little. Believe it or not, that's in our future, and I'm going to tell you about that. That's because back in the day when we figured out how to use those same power plants, not just to power lighting at night, but to power streetcars during the day and appliances in our rural communities, all of a sudden, the unit cost of energy was going down because the same assets were delivering more value. So we were serving more customers with the same exact infrastructure. That lowered costs for everyone. So just stand by, because there's something to know about how that exactly matches our situation today. So, how many of you are familiar with the duck curve? Okay, I'm going to explain it, and so just bear with me. It's a little nerdy, but that's my world, so I'm going to nerd out with you for just a little minute. So as you look at this chart, the vertical axis is how much energy is being used on the PG&E system on a given day, And then the line across is how much of that energy is used per hour. So hours of the day by energy volume use. So if you look back at 2015, we had a pretty steady usage throughout the 24-hour period on an average day. You could see a little bit at night when the lights came on, there was a little bump up in usage. Well, then you go to 2020, and here's the phenomenon. This dip in the middle of the day is the result of solar production. Whether it's bulk solar or solar on rooftops, it reduces, we see that as a reduction in demand from the grid, because where it's produced is where that energy demand is served. So energy demand didn't go down, but load on the grid went down in the middle of the day. And you can see it starts to look like a duck. Do you see that? That's the belly of the duck is at noon, and then the neck of it and its little beak. If it looks like a butterfly, you'll have to talk to someone else. So here's 2023. As we continue to add renewable resources, and particularly solar, this curve continues to deepen, and it's starting to look a little bit more like a goose now. So the concern here is that if we're not using that energy that's produced on the grid today, then the cost per unit is going up, like it did in the olden days. We want it to go down, so we need to find uses to leverage this new power production in the daytime, and particularly dynamic uses of energy that can, as I like to say, fill the belly of the duck. The actual condition today is there are many days of the year where we are exporting energy to, say, Arizona, and we are paying them to take it. So our system is out of balance. We have more production than we need. So what do we need? We need more uses. If you've got more product, you need more demand for that product in order to bring the prices down. So what's the best thing we could do for the grid? Electric vehicles is the best thing we could do for the grid. Not only is the grid ready for the electric vehicles, the grid needs the electric vehicles. It needs the electric vehicles to charge in the middle of the day. That's a little unusual. We all thought we were supposed to charge our cars at night. In fact, my husband used to print a little report for me that he would get from my utility and tell me that I was charging my car at the wrong time of the day because we were paying extra. That's why we have you pay extra if you charge at peak, because that means we have to build more infrastructure to serve peak, when in fact, if we just had you charging at noon, then the grid could utilize that energy and no more exporting energy to Arizona. We use the power that we produce right here at home. So then it leads to the last question. Yeah, but Patty, this all sounds very expensive. Infrastructure sounds expensive. In fact, some people have accused us of making record profits. PG&E is making record profits and my rates are up. Tell me what's going on. Well, I'm here to bust the myth. Number one, I'm happy to report, we have reduced your rates 3 times in the last 15 months, and we plan to reduce them again in 2026. So the good news is bills are down. At the same time that nationally, bills are up. In fact, bills will go up on average 8% nationwide this year. Ours are down. Bills will go up next year 4 to 6% nationwide. We're going down. And that's because we're finding new uses and we are transforming the culture at PG&E. When I talk about that safety culture, the most productive workplace is one that's safe. The most affordable workplace is one where people are owning the business and have pride in what they do, and we do it better every single day. We've scrubbed out $2.5 billion of bureaucracy from our business and have passed that along to you in rate reductions. There's more to come. We're just getting started. But let me tell you a couple more things. This opportunity to add EVs to the grid and to power AI, leveraging the underutilization of our grid and our assets here in California, means prices can go down even more. Let me explain it with a little video here.
2 things are true today. Demand for electricity has been essentially flat for decades, and we only use about 45% of our grid's capacity most days of the year. The future will look different, and that's good for everyone. Demand will double by 2040. From uses like EVs, homes, and data centers. We'll continue to invest in the infrastructure needed to serve customers with clean power. But we'll use more of the grid's capacity and lower costs for everyone. For example, say 5 people share a pizza and it's $10 each. When 10 people share the same pizza, it costs $5 each. Now, here's a simple equation that shows how customer energy prices are calculated. The costs of building the grid are divided by the overall amount of energy used to equal cost per unit of electricity. With higher demand increasing the amount of energy used, prices can come down for everyone.
So let's do this. Let's power our tech industry right here in California. Let's not send them out of state because we're worried. Let's utilize our existing infrastructure more efficiently. And in fact, for every gigawatt, that's again a big number, that's a big, maybe for us here in our area, about 10 new 100 megawatt data centers. Each gigawatt is the opportunity to save everyone 1 to 2%. When we add 10 gigawatts, that could save everyone 10 to 20% on your energy bill if we do that right. I think some people worry that it's a scarce resource being stretched to a big user. The good news is that big user pays for it. If we get the pricing right, they will pay for the power that exceeds the cost of bringing the infrastructure online. And in fact, we need to rebuild the grid because of its age. We can modernize the grid, make it safer, make it cleaner, with the support of our tech companies providing new revenue and new usage to our grid. This is a good thing, and we can do this well and show the world that yes, we're the home of technology in the world and the home of clean energy that serves it. We have the commitment, we have the wherewithal, we have the capability. This is a very exciting time and a good reason to be optimistic. So let me just hit you with a couple more stats, and then I think we're going to do a little Q&A here. So at the highest level, an electrified future or a decarbonized future here in California means fundamentally people actually will use less energy, particularly as it relates to our cars. So our cars are the number one source of carbon emissions today is transportation, our cars and trucks. And those same cars and trucks, an internal combustion engine fundamentally uses more energy than an electric engine. So an electric motor is a more efficient device. So fundamentally, just switching our carpool from internal combustion engines to electric reduces our energy use, number one. Now here's the great news. More importantly, it reduces our carbon emissions. So the 30% reduction in energy use is a 65% reduction in carbon emissions and a 30% reduction in household energy costs. You can spend less and have a cleaner planet. The planet I opened, the hypothesis is the planet's calling. It's asking us to take action. What action can you take? You can take action to decarbonize your transportation, electrify your home, be part of the solution, support us as we build the infrastructure that we need, knowing that it is that infrastructure that enables prices to go down. And I love this quote because we build infrastructure that's 50, 70-year infrastructure. Each of you will make choices today, much like people who plant the trees whose shade they will never know. You can be the great ones. You don't have to wait and hope that someone takes action. You can take action and you can be part of the solution. And I want you to know, your friends, your families, your neighbors who work at PG&E, we're taking action. We're moving fast. We've not progressed this fast with this much ambition because we're purpose-driven and our purpose is to serve you better. So thank you so much. I'd love to take some questions and answers.
Please welcome to the stage Mary Huss, President and Publisher Emerita of the San Francisco Business Times, Board Chair for San Francisco State University, and Co-Chair of the Women's Leadership Summit. Mary Huss.
Patti, we are all very inspired by everything. And I mean, it's just hard to believe that you've been here 5 years. And I think about what you walked into. you know, how daunting that must have been. So I'm just, thank you for inspiring us. And what I want to do is delve a little bit more into your leadership and sort of your leadership journey, and how do you know, here we are, the theme is what? Power of One. And it's about women leading change in uncertain times. All right, so you sort of personify that when you, but I know that you would never say that it's the power of one, but it's that one person who can lead a large group of people through change. So I want to understand a little bit more about how you did that. And so let's just dive right into it, because I think we could say safely that you are leading PG&E through probably one of the most, the greatest transformations of a company here in California history. So I would say it may have, what was it, bankrupt when you got here? You were not exactly held in high regard, and sort of a lot of bashing. I could say the lights were out in many ways, and the lights, you've really turned them on. So how, you know, what are some of the guiding principles that have helped you maintain your clarity, your optimism in such complex challenges?
Yeah, and first of all, I will say, when I arrived at PG&E, I met some extraordinary people. The people of PG&E, especially those that stayed. Really, you don't go to the utility for fame and fortune, for goodness sake. You go to the utility because you have a heart of service and that you care about your friends and your family and you want to do good for them. And I can say I found an army of that, and so that was a good place to start. But I'll say what really I think encouraged me then and continues today is, number one, my faith. That has been important, as well as our purpose, our virtues, and the stands that we took as a management team early on. So when I got there, first of all, I had to hire a whole new leadership team because all the positions were vacant. They had either left or had been fired, except for my lawyer, thank God. He was still there, and he's still there today. He's a good one. He's wonderful. But we established our purpose as a new leadership team, many of whom had deep experience running utilities nationwide. We brought, I feel like, the best draft picks from the nation came to serve you. And we took the stand that, number one, we would deliver for our hometowns, serve our planet, and lead with love. We knew there was a lot of healing that was required, and we needed to regain trust, and that all starts with our hearts as humans. And then we identified our virtues: trustworthy, curious, empathetic, nimble, tenacious, and owners. And so we worked to live those virtues every day. And finally, we took stands such as we wanted all of those things, our purpose and our virtues, to deliver outcomes for you. And so we took stands that, number one, catastrophic wildfire shall stop. Not like catastrophic wildfire will get better, or not in our area. We just said catastrophic wildfire shall stop, and we've made tremendous progress on that. We took a stand that everyone and everything is always safe, which was a key part of that safety performance that I shared. We took a stand that we'll have clean and resilient energy for all. We took a stand that our work shall create prosperity for our customers and our investors. And then we also said that it would be enjoyable to work with and for PG&E. So those 5 outcomes is what we have been pursuing. All of our key performance indicators are related to those. The business strategy is related to those. And as we make progress toward each and every one of those, it creates momentum and creates confidence and optimism that we can continue to improve.
Well, I love the leading with love. All right, that stands out. I've heard you say that in other interviews. And so how can you apply how that, maybe some metrics to how you've seen that pay off?
Yeah, we definitely think love works. It definitely delivers on many fronts. But I'd say one of the most obvious places where love applies is certainly on the job. I've had the unfortunate obligation to attend a funeral of one of those, or more than one of those coworkers who died on the job. And the outpouring of love at a funeral of a fallen coworker is overwhelming. And at first glance, you think, oh, what a beautiful tribute. But my thinking would be, that's too late. This is not the day to show your love. Your love is on the job. When you're standing next to your coworker who maybe they're more senior than you, but they're about to do something dangerous or take a shortcut, or maybe they just lost track of where they were. The moment to show love is on the job. And when we first started talking about that, if you can imagine, in our bull rooms and with our, as I like to call them, my big burly coworkers, at first glance, I got a few eye rolls. But in time, when they started to recognize that when we work side by side with people, it's way more than a work transaction. Of course, you build lifelong bonds of love and affection for one another, and when you can actually be free to express that, and sometimes that's in a tough love moment, that really can deliver real results. So obviously our safety statistics are one that we measure. We also actually measure joy. We have a joy survey, which we take because one of our stands is that it's enjoyable to work with and for PG&E, and so we measure joy, and it has 4 components. One, do you enjoy, we ask 4 questions. Do you enjoy working at PG&E? Then we ask, are you known? Are you loved? And do you feel proud working at PG&E? So I actually can score our love. 54% of my coworkers would say that they feel loved at work. And I would yeah, thank you. I mean, think about that for a minute. We had 23,000 people take our survey this year, and 54% said they felt loved at work. That's thousands of people who are out serving you who feel like they're known and loved, and well more than 80 feel proud and feel joy. But I think that love, somebody sent me a text message after we got our most recent scores, and they said, Patti, I think the love score is probably the best indicator of people buying in to who you want us to be. And I feel good about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, who thought, right? I mean, we see the burly people out on the street.
They're quite lovable, let me assure you.
They are lovable. So it's just really it's a lovely thing. So, so you are the first woman to serve as CEO of one Fortune 500 company. That is, what, CMS?
CMS Energy.
So you had a great job before you came here, but then consecutively lead another, which is really an extraordinary distinction. And I think, what are there, 55 maybe women leading Fortune 500? So talk a little bit about how your leadership philosophy has evolved, as you've gone from and what you learned maybe from one experience to the other. And I think also, did you aspire to be CEO of a large company? And kind of what got you here?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll just say, the first half of my career I spent in automotive. I was born in Michigan and worked for General Motors and moved around quite a bit, but always in operations, building cars. And I will say, when I left automotive and went to the utility, I had a pretty significant shift in my leadership style. Automotive was very tough business. And in that era, coming up the ranks, I know others on the previous panel talked about being in male-dominated fields. There's no doubt automotive was a very male-dominated field, but I was coming up at General Motors, and it was tough. And so then I got to the utility, and maybe I'd been there, I don't know, a month, and I got a call from the head of HR. And he said, Patti Poppe, you're going to have to change your ways. I was like, what? He said, you're too tough. You're scaring people. I'm like, oh my God, I've been on my best behavior. I'm in big trouble. I thought, maybe I can't make it here. So they sent me to charm school. And true confessions. And I went to this course, actually out here in California, with a woman named Rayona Sharpneck. Does anybody, Institute of Women's Leadership, amazing woman. Anyone who's thankful for Title IX, you should thank Rayona Sharpneck. She was among the causers of that. But she did this women's leadership course, and she really pressed me to lead from possibility instead of from fear. And I think it was such an important lesson for me because at first, she and I got in a bit of a fight in one of the meetings. Not a physical fight, but she was really pushing me. And I said, I think you're asking me to accept mediocrity because all I knew was how to force people to succeed. And she's like, no, Patty, you've got it all wrong. What if you inspired people to succeed? And I will tell you, that was very consequential in my career. I shifted from sort of a nothing's ever good enough, maybe some of you have a boss who thinks like that, nothing's ever good enough, to a position of anything is possible through God and others. And so that became my mantra, that anything is possible. I think my friends at PG&E would say, oh, okay, now we understand where that comes from. That I believe that anything is possible through God and others. Like together we can achieve anything. We can set our minds to it. Especially around here, you guys. I mean, we don't have to look but 5 feet to see the next most extraordinary outcome that someone made true that wasn't true before. Electric cars. I mean, who thought that someone could start an electric car company? Who thought that we could build an internet like this and have technology that transforms our lives? It's happening here. We do it here. And so I learned to lead from that point of view, and that was very consequential for me, I'd say.
Well, I know Rayona, and she's tough, but warm, right? I mean, I can totally, it's wonderful that tells me a lot of good things. So very interesting. So then you bring that philosophy to, again, I picture the Burley kind of, it is, they always say it's not your grandfather's utility or energy company. So how do you get, when you're changing the culture, as you have actively been doing, how do you get people to see that?
Yeah, we actually teach it. We have a course that we teach called Breakthrough Thinking, and it's run by a company called Gap International. They're out of Philadelphia. Highly recommend them if you have any need for breakthrough change or culture change in your companies. But they came and we've put thousands of our leaders through workshops, 4-day workshops, to help them see that every change in the world has started with someone saying it for the first time. Somebody has to say it first. And so I'll give you an example. Early on, we brought all my officers, my executives, we put them through the 4-day breakthrough leadership course. And on the 4th day, we were wrapping up, and one of my attorneys came and saw me, and he's like, Patty, listen, we have to bury the lines. I'm like, really? I'm like, isn't it expensive? And he's like, no, Patty, I'll tell you what's expensive is paying legal claims and dealing with the moral hazard of traumatic, catastrophic fires and vegetation management, chopping down all these trees and the inspections, that's expensive. And so he called, and I was so proud of him, because outside his lane, let me assure you, he called the summit to figure out how we could affordably bury the lines. And I'm happy to report that, as I mentioned, we've buried our 1,000th mile just a couple weeks ago. We've reduced the cost to do that by 25%. We started at a little over $4 million a mile. We're down to $3 million a mile. That's less than it costs to bury gas lines. And by the way, all the gas lines are buried. That change was caused by people who realized that we had to do it differently. And if we just kept doing the same thing, we would end up in the same place. And so I want to just bust one more myth today. I know many people think your energy bill is up because we've had to bury these lines. That is not true. $1.50 a month is in your bill for the buried power lines. $20 a month is in your bill to trim all the trees that we have to come back and do year after year after year after year. We must save the trees, bury the lines, build the infrastructure meant for purpose to be safe, and it will cost less. And it does cost less today. So I just want you to know we're not gone crazy. We're not just trying to, spend a bunch of money. We're trying to spend your money like it's ours, like that we are your neighbor and we have to be accountable to you and do what's right for you and what's right for Fela and her family, and the commitment that I made that it would never happen again.
Wow. I also know Gap International. We'll talk later.
Okay.
Anyway, so we're tight on time here, and I'm trying to decide the very best question to ask you. Let's just talk about just energy. I mean, it's really, you have a passion, clearly, about impacting climate. And, you know, you're the energy company. So what can you say about careers and leadership and the future of careers in that field? And that would be...
Yeah, well, and it may or may not relate to careers in my field per se. It does relate, so I'll just tell you a little bit. I have a Japanese philosophy that I have used for many, many years, decades now, I guess. And maybe some of you have heard of it. It's called Ikigai. And the Japanese philosophy says this: it's about having a purposeful life and a fulfilled life. And there's 4 components, and I think often we stop with only one. And the first component is, can you be paid for your work? And so, you know, some people stop right there, go to the place where you can be paid the most, and that's enough. Ikigai would say, and what are you good? Do what you're good at, and do what you love, which is sometimes different than what you're good at. Maybe you get called to organize all the things, but perhaps you'd actually like to lead the things. So yes, you do what you're good at, and do what you love, and do something the world needs. And when you have all of those 4 things, then you can live a fruitful, purposeful life that goes well beyond, you know, your work hours, that your work hours are as productive and beneficial and joyful as your non-work hours. And I think we should all have careers that are fulfilling in that way. And I can emphatically say that my career has been one of Ikigai, that I am blessed to have all of those things present in what I do. And serving you is truly my greatest joy. And I know the world needs that, but I love to do it.
Well, and it radiates from you, I have to say. So I'm going to give just one more question, and it's probably a pretty quick one. Just, is there one trait or characteristic that you have, that you just own, that you know has been very integral to your success from the beginning of your career on?
You know, this is definitely one that I learned from Keith Kroc. Anybody in the house know Keith Kroc, the former CEO of DocuSign? He taught me this, that you got to have fun at work, everybody. That it's okay to lead with a little joy and a little fun. And we just spend too many hours doing it to think it just has to be hard. Work does not need to be hard. It needs to be fun. It can be challenging and sometimes a little aggravating, but that can still bring you joy. So I think having fun at work is definitely part of the formula.
All right, well, great. Well, we thank you. I have many more questions, and I'm sure the audience does too, but we're out of time now.
Thank you,
So
Mary.
good
Thank you
luck
so much.
on the journey, and
Thank you
thanks
so
for
much.
sharing it with us.